a hospital for poor people. So, out in the middle of Puttaparthi, India, out in the middle of nowhere, Alex Tigre and the chief architect for the Queen of England got involved in the project and so forth, and they built an incredible hospital in the middle of nowhere. And people were coming up to Sai Baba and saying, why are you building a hospital in the middle of the countryside of poor people when you could build one in Bombay or Delhi or whatever? And Sai Baba says, hey, there are plenty of hospitals in Bombay and Delhi and so forth for people. There are none for the poor people here. So I want a hospital here. So, and also, no one is to ever be charged for treatment in this hospital. It's supposed to be free for anyone. Anyone from America could go there right now and get a heart transplant and not be charged a dime or whatever this is needed. And so anyway, they built this hospital in record time. And it's amazing, the Indian government allowed them to bring in all the medical machines without any duty on the machines or anything, and they built this hospital. And it's getting time for Sai Baba's birthday, you know, when 3 million people came, and Sai Baba said, you know, I want some heart operations and things in the hospital on my birthday. And they said, but Sai Baba, the operating room isn't sterile yet, it's not clean. I mean, we've just, you know, we're putting it together, we don't have the glass and so forth. Sai Baba said, I want the operations anyway. So on his birthday, they did something like 12 heart transplants on his birthday in this unsterile operating room. And they said, Sai Baba, will everything be okay? He said, everything will be fine. And everything was fine. Not one person ever had a single infection or whatever in this place. So anyway, so now this beautiful hospital is built. They're building a jet landing strip next to it. So in other words, people do things in Sai Baba's name. They don't, in other words, he doesn't ask for money or anything. He still lives in this little room they built for him when he was 13 years old. You know, and they built a shield living in this tiny little room. And
he's got the world.
Yeah, he doesn't need anything. Well, he doesn't need a thing because he can make anything in the world with his hand.
What's the name of the hospital?
I don't know the name of the hospital. It's in Puttaparthi, India. You'll know it when you go there. And it's probably Sai Baba's hospital, you know. But anyway, he visit you in your dreams that he's really there, that he never ever, you'll never dream about him unless it's really real. In other words, that is, he's really there with you. So the first time he visited me, he gave me a hug, and that was a beautiful, blissful experience. And then the second time I asked him, and he taught me how to draw Sri Yantra. And then a couple of years went by, and he didn't visit or anything. And I was kind of getting lonely and wanting, you know, just to see him or something. And so one night I dreamed that I was standing outside a school building, and he was walking through a school building, looking at a new school building with the desks and everything. And I was looking through the glass at him. And as he's walking through with this group of people, he just stopped and turned and looked straight at me. And when he looked straight at me, 2 beams of blue light went out of his eyes right into mine, and I went into total bliss. I mean, it was just amazing. And for months after that, all I had to do is remember that dream, and I'd go into a state of bliss. I mean, it was absolutely so profound. I mean, incredible, ecstatic love. And then, so anyway, Sai Baba did visit me when I had my near-death experience, and that's probably one of the reasons I'm here. It is the reason I'm here, really, because dying and coming back is a profound thing, and dying for 20 minutes and coming back, for me, is incredibly profound. I know that I knew Don Como, who is a film producer down in L.A., and told him about Sai Baba years ago, and he went to India to see Sai Baba, and as he arrived, right after he arrived with his film crew, a person who was a Sai Baba devotee living there, an older man and his wife were living there in India, and the older man died, and they wanted to take his body to the morgue, and the wife didn't want him to take. They said, no, Sai Baba has to come bless him before you take him to the morgue, and they said, yeah, but you know, this is India and you have no air conditioning, and you know, you need to get him to the morgue. And she said no, and so they left him there for several days. And so he's dead for several days, and he's starting to make the neighbors upset, you know, because of the odors coming from his body. And so, and she still wouldn't let him take him. But one day Sai Baba comes to the house, goes into the room with him, and walks out a few minutes later, and he's alive.
What?
Yeah, yeah. And Don Como got this whole story on film. And the thing is about it is that his interview on film, which is profound, is that he said that he was in this room, which is a hall of judgment, and it was like a courtroom, and there were these judges, and he was talking about his life, going over his life, and boy, this really happens, and it's something that we all have to think about and how we live our lives, because it really happens. I mean, we have to go over the things that we've done in our lives, good and bad, and it can change the way you conduct your life. It's profound. Anyway, he's in this hall of judgment, and they're going over the good things that he did and the bad things that he had done in his life. And Sai Baba walks into the hall of judgment and says, you can't have him. I'm taking him back. Took him by the hand, and the judges bowed to Sai Baba, and he walked out with him. And the next thing he remembered is he woke up in his body. All the decay was gone. His body was in perfect health, and he was alive again. And Sai Baba said, I'm giving you more time to be with your wife and family and to do work. And he lived one more year and died exactly 1 year later. And so that's profound. So the near-death experience is for me the most profound thing that ever happened in my life. And I know that it happened 2 years before, but I don't remember what happened when it happened 2 years before, just the electrocution and waking up. But this one, I have some memories, and more memories are coming back, and I know that I've been blessed for a reason, and my whole life has been blessed. I mean, incredibly well blessed. But this is a special blessing which I've been given, and I know that there's something that I need to do, some messages that need to be given, especially we're approaching a new millennium, and we're getting millennium fever. You know, the world is getting millennium fever, but there are different forms of it. A man wrote a book called wait a minute. No, not that. Well, see, it's in there somewhere. Anyway, there's it's a book about the end of each century and the end of the millenniums. And basically what he says is that, you know, at the end of the first millennium in the year 990, he tracked actual historical documents and letters and things like that of what people were predicting about the end of the first millennium from 990 forward to the year 1000. And basically they were predicting the end of the world, the return of Jesus, the UFOs, I don't know, they were predicting everything, and catastrophes for the world and so forth. In fact, there was so much prediction about catastrophes that on January 31st, 999, in Europe, over 200,000 people committed suicide to keep from being involved in the end of the world coming, you know, on the year 1000. And for them, the world did end for them in whatever violent way they chose to die. And then on January 1st, the year 1000 in China, there was an enormous earthquake, and tens of thousands of people died in China that day. Of course, they didn't know it was the year 1000, but they were on a different calendar. But and of course, the calendar, you know, doesn't. It's pretty arbitrary, very arbitrary thing, in fact. But after all this, it is the Gregorian calendar, you know, produced by Pope Gregory, and that's what, of course, Jose Arguelles is talking about. We should go back to the Mayan calendar, which is the most accurate calendar in history. The Mayans' calendars were all very accurate. They had a bunch of them, and they were all incredibly accurate. They knew about every planet in our solar system and the exact cycle of each planet in our solar system, and they had a calendar for each one, and they knew exactly to the moment when eclipses would occur, solar and lunar eclipses, hundreds of years ahead, and so forth and so on. And our calendar is still off and has to be corrected continuously. But the fact is that, you know, Jose is talking about a movement of going back to somehow getting back on the Mayan calendar so that we are living according to natural time instead of artificial time. But which I think could be quite profound. But the interesting thing is that that we're now approaching the end of a millennium. So at the end of the first millennium, you have this millennium fever, and at the end of every century, there's always been kind of almost a spiritual renaissance, a spiritual scientific renaissance of people like you and me, people who are interested in consciousness and science and frontier edge kind of things. You know, we in this room are ahead of most people, way ahead of most people as far as what we know about the world and what's going on in it, and that can profoundly affect the world are usually 40 or 50 years ahead of their time. And I invented the neurophone over 40 years ago. And the thing is the neurophone is one of the most fantastic tools of consciousness that we could ever have. And one of the things that I believe that I've been brought here for, and one of the things that I've actually received messages on to that effect, is that the neurophone can profoundly change the consciousness of the entire world in ways that could affect every being on this planet. And one of the ways that I was given that I'd like to mention is that what I was told, and I was told this when I was 13 years old when I first invented the neurophone. And I told it to Bob Monroe when I visited him years ago at the Monroe Institute, and we sat around for a week and talked. And but basically, because Bob had a similar idea with his hemisync thing, but he didn't have quite the whole message, and neither did I at the time. But I'm getting it. I'm getting the message. Let's say. But basically, what I was told is that we all in this room as spiritual beings, we all have infinite power. Every single one of us has the same power as Sai Baba. Sai Baba says we are all God. The only difference is that he knows it and we don't. And that if you really know it, you could do what Sai Baba can do. You could bring people back to life. He's performed every single miracle that has been reported in the Bible. He's made blind people see and naturally brought dead people back to life and cured people who were crippled for life and all kinds of things. And one of the things that we all have this infinite power, but we're all not synchronized with each other in any way. If we all had perfect telepathic powers, not one of us could ever lie to the other one. Not one of us could ever hurt another person, because we'd all know what was on each other's minds, and instantly all deception would disappear, and we'd all be in so much better shape if we could all do that. And actually, part of that is coming in our future. That really is coming in our future. And but the fact is that what I was told is that if I took 12 people plus one more, 12 people plus one, and we put these people together with the neurophones and synchronized in a certain way, synchronized their brains so that every single one of their minds were perfectly synchronized. I mean, perfectly synchronized, that all the EEG signals and all the little thought patterns in each of their brains were synchronized by the neurophones, that group of people could alter the consciousness of every person on Earth in a flash, that the entire Earth could go into a new level of consciousness, cosmic consciousness or bliss consciousness or whatever. And that was given to me when I first made the neurophone when I was 13, and all my life I've been trying to figure out how to do it. And yeah, probably at some point. But we didn't have computers like we have now 40 years ago, naturally. In fact, I've worked on computers since they were made since they ran on steam. But I worked for IBM on the NASA space shots for Gemini, and worked for the Navy on manned dolphin communications, and developed a computer that translates human speech into dolphin whistles back into human speech again. And so I've been in computers for a long, long time. And you see, I may be only 53 years old, but I have the knowledge of a person who's in his 80s as far as the lifetime of experience, let's say, because I started early. That's all. I just started early. I mean, When other people were playing with toys, I was playing with transistors. No, I wasn't. They didn't make transistors then. I was playing with vacuum tubes. But okay, so the idea is that I feel that I'm going to create a computerized neurophone. And I'm going to need, I know I'm going to need really good expert computerized programmer knowledge, because I'm not a really, I can program, but I'm not a really good programmer. I'm going to need someone who knows digital speech processing inside and out and can sit down and write digital speech processing, algorithms with me and work on a way of creating a computerized neurophone so that I can synchronize the brainwaves of all those people. Because we know, for example, that when you wear the neurophone, that the left and right hemispheres of the brain go into perfect phase coherence. In other words, when I put on a neurophone, or anyone else in here puts on a neurophone for half an hour, the left and right hemispheres go into phase coherence, which means that the left side and the right side know what each other is doing. You've heard that the left side doesn't know what the right side is doing. Well, that's true in all of us except when we're in phase coherence.
Does the information taken into the neurophone, is that an organic experience?
Oh, yes. Now we know, by the way, I didn't mention how the neurophone works. We now know that the neurophone works through ultrasonic sound, ultrasonic vibration. Originally, when we took these high voltage plates and we had a capacitor and we had 3,000 volts across it, most people don't even know what this means, but anyway, and you put your head in between, this thing, what happens is that these little electrodes became what is known as electrostatic loudspeakers for ultrasonic frequencies, okay? And what happened is that the skin on the head vibrated 40,000 times per second. And the modulation, now we know from the work of Dr. Martin Lennart at the University of Virginia in 1991, who duplicated my neurophone in 1991, who did it because he was aware of the neurophone is what got him to do this experiment, although he didn't mention it in the medical paper, which he admitted that to a friend of mine who is the doctor, who is the chief physician for Muhammad Ali, Dr. Carosa. Anyway, basically what he did is he found out that we have an organ inside the inner ear called the saccule, and the saccule is about the size of a pea, and it's an organ that we normally use for balance, for knowing where our head is in relation to the center of the earth for gravity. In other words, it keeps us aligned. And the saccule has a dual function. It not only keeps us balanced, but it's an ultrasonic hearing detector that only detects ultrasonic sound that's transmitted vibrationally through the body. Now that is so weird. When we were created, why did we get an ultrasonic hearing organ and our ears only detect sound? In other words, the saccule will not pick up ultrasonic sound through the ears. Only if you take the ultrasonic sound and you apply it physically to the body. Now, when we swim with dolphins and the dolphins scan us, we can hear the dolphins scanning us. But what you don't realize is that a lot of the hearing that you're hearing is neurophonic hearing. In other words, you're hearing the ultrasonic scan of the dolphin through your body. You're hearing the way you hear with the neurophone. You think you're hearing that dolphin whistle with your ears when you're underwater swimming with a dolphin. But those dolphins are scanning you ultrasonically, and you're hearing neurophonically. And what's happening is that the saccule in the ear is picking up the ultrasonic signals. And we now know, for example, that when people swim with dolphins, that the left and right hemispheres of the brain go into perfect phase coherence. So one of the functions of the saccule is that when it picks up certain ultrasonic frequency signals, it puts the brain into phase coherence. So it's another channel into the brain, an ultrasonic channel, but only works through the skin. So now, the latest neurophone we have uses little thin piezoelectric. Piezoelectric means that when you apply an electric voltage, that it vibrates in accordance with the electrical voltage. So these are ultrasonic transducers. They're little metal plates. They don't have voltage across them. In other words, they don't, they have about 20 volts, but they actually vibrate at ultrasonic rate. And when you apply that to the skin, 90%, over 90% of the energy goes in ultrasonically, but about 10% of it is a distortion that ends up being heard by your ears. In other words, with the current neurophone, it's not silent like my original neurophone. When the original neurophone, when you put it on the body, no one could hear standing next to you. With the current neurophone, if you put the electrodes on your head, someone standing next to you can hear the music. But what they're hearing is only a small percentage of the actual power. Most of it's in the ultrasonic range going to the saccule in the brain. Now, it's very hard to get rid of that 10% vibration that you hear with your ears. Like a lot of people have said, gee, I'd love the neurophone to be totally silent like the original one. And the only way to do that is with 3,000 volts right now, because I cannot make an ultrasonic transducer inexpensively, when I say inexpensively, for less than $10,000, that will be silent. In other words, I'd have to have a $5,000 transducer here and a $5,000 transducer here in order for it to be silent, because it's called harmonic modulation distortion. In other words, these transducers are only so efficient at ultrasonic frequencies, and some of the sound from the modulation spills over. So for those of you who know what that means, then you'll understand why the current neurophone makes some noise when you listen to it.
What was the level of distortion in the original?
Well, because the skin's the vibrator. The skin is an electrostatic loudspeaker system is about as efficient as you can get, and that's basically the original neurophone was a 40 kilohertz electrostatic loudspeaker that's vibrating the skin internally at 40 kilohertz, and the skin itself is piezoelectric. And so I just discovered a phenomenon which no one even knew about in the world until, and of course we didn't know how the neurophone worked. I made the first neurophone in 1958, and it wasn't until 1991 that Dr. Leonard discovered how it works. So now we know that. Now it's interesting, another interesting point is the idea is that if the saccule is a dual function organ, how many other organs in our bodies perform dual functions? How many other sensory organs perform dual functions? In other words, do our eyes see things that, or perceive things that we aren't even aware of consciously? Yes, they do. Does our skin